Unmuted.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world listening to the webinar today. My name is Bill Maddox. I'm the Director of the Sustainable Microenterprise Development Program here in Durham, New Hampshire. And welcome to the first 2014 SNDP webinar. We took a little bit of a hiatus for the first 6 months of this year, concentrating on the joint webinar series that I'll talk about in a minute. But I want to welcome everybody to this webinar. A reprise of a webinar that we did last year with Chuck Waterfield. I'll be introducing Chuck in a minute. I also want to let you know that we are doing this as kind of a simulcast while we're talking to you during this webinar. We also have a classroom full of microfinance students here in Durham from all over the world, mostly from East Africa. So we're really glad that they're a part of this today, and they will actually be able to ask questions as we go forward. Before I introduce Chuck and our topic for today, I do want to let you know that we are, as I said, kicking off this webinar series, and we'll have webinars just about every month from now until the end of the year. We have some really interesting webinars coming up. The first webinar I want to announce is actually one of the joint webinars. So we have been working with Oxfam and with the SEEP network to put together a webinar series that is really focused on savings groups, on all of the kind of intricacies and important questions that savings group practitioners have been asking. We've had 3 webinars so far. The next one will be coming up on Friday, June 27th. This will be at 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern Standard Time in the United States, which is -5 GMT. This is the first time we will do a webinar in 2 languages. The topic is partnering with government savings groups in Colombia. En español, it's Alianza con el Gobierno Grupos de Ahorro in Colombia. My Spanish is very poor, I apologize. Through the example of Colombia, we'll explore how a partnership with government can provide savings groups with access to conditional cash transfers. This is a program done in Colombia with 120,000 people through IED Vital and the Colombian government. We will have Eloisa De Viete, Giovanni Mendoza, and Carlos Caceres of IED Vital. And so the English language webinar is going to be at 10:30 to 11:30, and the Spanish webinar will be from 12:30 to 1:30. So you'll get a notice about this if you're on our mailing list, but it should be pretty fascinating webinar. We hope you can join us on the 27th of June. On the 27th of August, also 10:30, 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time, -5 GMT, deepening our understanding of markets and formal regulation in the business enabling environment. And this is with Mary Morgan from Mary Morgan Consulting. She's from Vancouver, has been involved in the market development space for the last 20 years, and she has some very interesting new angles on doing this work. And the next webinar I want to announce is just to give you some good advance notice, because this will be a really interesting webinar on the business solution to poverty, which happens to be the name of a book written by our webinar host, Mal Warwick, and Paul Pollock. This will be Wednesday, September 17th from 12 to 1 Eastern Daylight Time. Mal and Paul have written a really groundbreaking book about really the how-tos of how to put together social businesses that can scale up and make huge impact. So I hope you'll be able to join that. There will be more joint workshops between, webinars between Oxfam, CARSI, and SEEP that we'll announce. So keep your ears open for those. And but now, without further ado, I want to get on to today's topic. We, as I said, ran this webinar last year. We had a very good turnout for it, a lot of interest, and so we thought we would do it again. We're really happy to have with us today Chuck Waterfield. Chuck has been a member of the faculty of the predecessor to the SNDP, which is the Microenterprise and Development Institute, and he's also been on the faculty of the Boulder Microfinance Training Program in Turin. He has 25 years of experience in microfinance with a mixture of practical field experience, 6 years starting MFIs in both Haiti and Bolivia, and experience leading network strategy development, serving as microenterprise director for both Meta and for CARE International. Chuck developed Microfin, the most popular financial planning software in the microfinance industry, and teaches business planning courses around the world. More than 3,000 microfinance professionals have been trained in his courses. Chuck is really a leader in many aspects of the field. His current work as an independent consultant includes clients across the industry. This is a topic today which we're reminded that back several years ago, 2008, when the Copper-Tomos IPO occurred, it really sent shockwaves around the world. Chuck was one of the first people to act and to see that there was a need for greater transparency and more communication between borrowers and their customers and donors, and so therefore he and other colleagues and some major donor support put together an organization called Microfinance Transparency. So we're really excited to have Chuck with us today to talk about the work of Microfinance Transparency, and specifically looking at how pricing occurs and some of the ways in which microfinance institutions can be more transparent and be more honest about their pricing. So we'll have an opportunity to look at some slides, but also go right out and look at the Microfinance Transparency website, which is very dynamic and very interesting and includes the transparency reports for many MFIs from around the world. So before I turn the mic and screen over to Chuck, I just want to let people know that you can ask questions. If you look on your GoToWebinar control box, there should be a little box that says questions. Type in your questions, and I'll be moderating the question answering near the end of the webinar once Chuck is wrapped up. So please go ahead and type them in, and I will then ask Chuck the questions. We're going to have our students here in New Hampshire, our SMDP students, also have an opportunity to ask Chuck some questions, so I'll add their questions in. And in the very beginning of the webinar, right after Chuck begins talking, we're going to launch a couple of polls. These are polls that you, as the participants out there in webinar world, can answer. Once the poll comes up, we'll give you about 45 seconds to answer, and then I'll close the poll, and then everybody will be able to see the poll results. So with all of that introduction, I'm really happy to turn the mic over to Chuck. And Chuck, we're really glad to have you here, and take it away.
Thanks, Bill, and greetings to everyone. Let me see. I need to get into the PowerPoint mode. I'm going to go through some slides, mostly data, and I'm going to spend just a few minutes also on our website that Bill was mentioning. Hopefully, I expect that many or most of you have seen some of the material that we've been sharing, so I won't go much over the basics. I'm going to kind of leap into what we're learning and the consequences and something of next steps. Excuse me, need to get ready to talk here. I was walking to make a presentation in Frankfurt, and I saw a sign that reminded me that microfinance is not the only industry that plays around with pricing, that does non-transparent pricing. My attention was drawn by the sign, as you can see, but when you look a little closer, you see this small print underneath: free Wi-Fi, great beer, great service all day. This is what marketers do, is they are, and I shouldn't say all marketers, we shouldn't lump them all together, but there's a motivation to draw the consumer's attention with a price that looks cheaper than it really is. So this is what we've been doing in microfinance for 30 plus years. The questions we've been ignoring are, what price do we really charge? And the reality, honestly, I think when you look at the data on the MFT website, the prices are higher than we knew they were high, but I think anyone who looks at it, they're actually higher than we thought. Okay, what price do we tell the client? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're going to talk about what is defining what is a transparent price, and we're moving into progressively moving into trying to determine what is a responsible price. MF Transparency and I have postponed leaping or moving into the fourth point before we really understand the first three. To reach a decent decision, a knowledgeable, informed decision on the fourth point, responsible price, we really need to understand the other three. And I argue that we're there. We have that information, as I'm going to share with you. So many of you have probably seen this quiz, so I'll go through really quickly. But again, it's just, this is the reality. This is what a consumer in microfinance faces. I'm using exactly the same amount for loan term, 1,000 for 10 weeks. The consumer knocks on the first door and is told a 0% interest loan and a small upfront fee, 5%. We give you $950, you pay back 1,000, and no quote-unquote savings. Consumer goes across the street and finds an interest rate of 15%. It's charged flat, but they're probably not told that. In most cases, they're not. That's not told. They're not told that, and if they were, they wouldn't understand what flat meant. A small upfront fee of 2% and none of that savings. They go to a third institution, lower interest rate, lower fee, and probably told the benefit of help them save. That 20% of the loan goes in a savings account. After they pay back the $1,000 loan, they have $200 in savings. The last one, they go to one more, and they're told a 36% interest rate, declining balance, no fees, no security deposit or savings. Which loan? How is the consumer going to make that decision? Well, they often ask, well, how much do I really have to pay back? The total cost of credit. That's an instinctual question. On the first one, it's 50. On the second one, it happens to also be 50. On the third one with the savings, it looks like a lower price. It's only $33 to borrow 1,000 for 10 weeks. And the last one is 38. So now things look a little different than you may have thought. The one on the far right that looked the most expensive is not, and that's tempting on that one with the savings. It only costs 33, and you go home with $200 of savings. Well, the APR, what we use in MFT and what regulators around the world almost entirely use, is the proper way to compare loan prices. And as you can see, the first three are all the same price, 48% annual percentage rate. And the last one that looked so expensive is by far the cheapest, 36%. MFT has developed a transparency index where we can compare the interest rate you're told with the true price. And when we run those numbers over here, you're told 36 and the true price is 36, so that's a fully transparent price. These others are very opaque prices. This one you're told 15 and it's 48, so your score is 32. This one you're not even told an interest rate, so that one sort of boggles the mind. It's not a free loan. It's a 48. It's the equivalent of a 48% interest rate. That's messy. All of us know that's messy. The APR is what the industry is standardizing on. It's useful. It's a unit rental cost for borrowing $1 for 1 year. So if you're told an APR of 30%, that means I take $1 and keep it for a year. At the end of the year, I give you back $1.30. That's logical. That helps you to understand the messiness of a financial product, right? Now, what we found is that confirmed is the likelihood that as your price gets higher, you hide it more. Here's a logical way to see this, the transparency index. If I'm really setting things up with fees and interest to charge you a full price of 22, I'll probably tell you the interest rate is 20 and I got a tiny little fee, and I'm telling you 90, I'm getting a score of 90. I'm telling you almost the full price. But if I want to charge you 50%, do I want to tell you the price is 50%, or do I want to tell you the price is 45%? No, I'll probably switch to flat, and I'll tell you the interest rate is 25. And in fact, there are MFIs that have they'll have two products. They'll have one larger loan product with a 20% declining balance interest rate, and they'll have a different product with a 25% flat interest rate. Consumers walk in, they hear 20, 25, real price is really 22 and 50. Again, mass confusion. There's a transparency index of 50. Now, if I want to charge you 100%, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to charge you 35% flat and throw in some fees and throw in some collateral security deposit, generally referred to as quote-unquote savings. And so the transparency index drops almost, we have this, we see it almost like lockstep in all the data we have. As your price gets higher, most of us hide the price more. Okay, that's the reality. I mean, that's sort of a trap that you kind of feel yourself pulled into. We've got country pricing reports that have a wealth of data. I encourage you to go and look, pull them up. Here's one for Uganda. Here, this shows us that most of the products, 72% of the products in Ghana or Uganda, flat interest, and the others declining balance. Two out of three clients in Ghana and Uganda are paying flat interest. Now, the interest rate advertised for the loan, in fact, most of the products have the same interest rate. A few, about 20%, have an interest rate that varies, the same product, but some clients pay 15 and some pay 25, right? That we find that varying more in very different countries. Bolivia, for example, almost all the products have a variable interest rate. And then on top of that flat interest rate, you've got 40, you've got half, well, let's look at clients. You've got half the clients paying one fee. You've got another 38% of clients paying two fees. 13% of the clients pay three or more fees on top of the interest, which tends to be flat interest. In addition, insurance. 90% of the clients also are obligated to buy insurance. So you're paying flat interest, one or two or three fees, and an obligated insurance, and about half the clients, over half the clients, 60% of the clients have to have some form of compulsory deposit. That's messy pricing, and there's no doubt about it. I don't want to just pick on Uganda here. This happens in the majority of the countries. There's a few countries where things are cleaner. It's generally a result of regulators getting in and trying to clean things up. So we've got all this data. The prices are high. You're going to see them in a moment. Why? Bill asked me to talk about why do MFIs give us their data. It's voluntary. There are push and pull factors. The pull factors of why would they want to give data? Well, some of them are already high. A small percentage, admittedly, already have pretty transparent pricing policies. That's their practice. That's their ethics, and so they have no problem with that being public on MFT's website. Another group feel trapped in hiding their price because everyone else is hiding their price, and they would like to move toward transparent pricing. That's a fairly good percentage of the market in any country, and we are the enabler to help move that country toward transparent pricing. In some cases, a few countries, Bosnia, Cambodia, there's already obligatory transparency, so participating with MFT is fairly easy and natural, I should say. And the other pull factor is that, well, my price is low. I know my price is low, and so no problem being honest, being transparent on the low prices. There's a growing group of those that are seeking certification on broader compliance, and part of that is that they're expected to be transparent in the pricing, and they contact us as a consequence. Yeah. Now now that gets maybe I'd say maybe depending on varies by the country, but overall that gets us about 60 or 70% of the participation. The rest comes from push factors. What are those? When 70% of the country, the MFIs in your country, have given data and you haven't, now you're in the minority and you feel, well, okay, we really should. It's going to look bad if we don't, right? In addition, your funders and networks are watching this, and in many cases, they're contacting you and saying, well, why aren't you participating? Why aren't you listed on the MF Transparency website with a transparent price? So you get a little pressure from your peers in your country, and you're getting pressure from the funders and networks more broadly. And a reality is that in some cases you just get plain worn out from the MFT staff relentlessly contacting you and saying, give us your data, give us your data. Okay, so we actually, I mean, it takes in many cases it takes months and months. It takes an average of 5 months of contacting and saying, you should be here, you should be here, you're not there, give us your data. So those are the push factors. Okay, as a result, we have some 29 countries that we've worked in. Most of them have progressed to transparency. The dark blue ones are transparent. The gray ones here refused, South Africa and Argentina. And if you click on our website, you can read why. Over 500 institutions, loans going to over 50 million people. Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. I mean, this is data we never had before. Now the data's there, and what we now, I believe most of us finally understand, is that when you're talking about prices, you shouldn't use average prices. Here's one of many reports. There's a CGAP one from several years ago that analysts love to lump all microfinance together and calculate a median. And here they say, oh, calm down. The median interest rate's about 26%, and they're dropping. Well, if you go to my presentations on MF transparency, you'll find why both those statements are erroneous, mistaken conclusions. Okay. Now let's just jump over now to the website. I want to show you some real pricing data. What price are we really charging? Now I did show you a country pricing report. Here's one here. You can find lots of resources. I'll just spend 30 seconds here. If you click on resources, you can filter, you can search and filter by language, by type of resource, and get and then download any of this stuff for free. Here's this little link here. Also, view as table is kind of nifty. So let me just point this out because you might miss it on your own. There happen to be 81 resources, and if I'm interested in Uganda, there I start typing Uganda and it pulls up the 3. And if I want to know more about it, I just click there, and there's a little bit more detail of that report, a little more detail of that report. That's a country report, professional level. That's a popular resource. This one's a experience level, deeper understanding. You can find things quickly on the way that we've designed the resource center. That's just one section here, the resource and the news. In fact, here's somewhere. Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought, we're on the resource center. Yeah, if we were on news, okay, this is what I missed. Is that earlier I saw this. Here we are here, right here, the Unraveling the Mysteries of Microfinance Industry. So you can find out about additional future presentations and resources that we have right on the website. Now let's jump over to the pricing data. So we saw this global page, we saw the countries and the statistics. We come down here and we see the full list of countries. Let me just, well, my daughter just came back from living 2 years in Tanzania, so let's pull up Tanzania. I click there, and there are the prices in Tanzania. I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well. The font is a little small. I'll zoom it up a little bit. Here's the full APR. That's 100%. That's 200%. That's 300%. So it seems like prices are hovering around 100% seem to be about average. Now the prices we have here on this axis the loan size. Larger loans tend to have smaller prices down. Well, that one there is at 25%. And as the loan amount goes down, we don't see a dramatic curve in Tanzania, but we do see that prices do go up. And again, they're going up. Did we have any idea that half the clients in Tanzania are paying more than 100%? Did we know that? Not too many of us knew that. Here's Finca, right on kind of average, and the bubble size is how many clients. You can see this sort of scale over here. This one here is Pride charging 110% on that size loan, 134% on that. There's 100,000 clients in Tanzania paying with that particular product at prices ranging from 100 to 130, 110 to 130%. The Finca product, let me just click on you click on any bubble, and it pulls up the detail on this product, and it gives you lots of what included services there are, men and women. It's a required business loan. It's got some statistics down here, pricing information. Here's one reason I pulled up this Finca is that it's actually declining balance. 2 years ago, Finca Tanzania had flat interest, and Finca in numerous countries had flat interest, and they have, in the past 2 years, made the decision to shift to declining balance interest rate. Their transparency index is higher as a result. And look at this, no fees, no insurance, declining balance interest. Wow. And a small, only 10%, not too big of a compulsory deposit. So that's a fairly transparent price. Where do we get the prices? I just want to show you this before I move on. Here's what we do is we get 6 sample loans across from very small to somewhat larger loans, and we get the repayment schedule. Let me click on this one. There's the actual repayment schedule of a Finca client. We block out the name, but that's a loan that went out on that date and that time. Okay, we get that information and we run it through our calculator, and we generate the exact price. And if you want to see our calculations, you click there, and it opens up. There's our price calculations. Shows you exactly how we do it. You can compare the real repayment schedule to our calculation, and every single price, tens of thousands of these prices on the MF Transparency website all have that substantiating documentation behind it. Okay, so that's what you find. We drill down and we show you the real prices, and that this is one product that tends, because it's a transparent price, it tends to have a fairly flat price. But you'll find other products that some clients are paying 40 and some other clients are paying 60 and others paying 90, all in the same product. One product does not have one price, and this data approach helps to get toward understanding that better. Now, so you can explore around. You can go to a country page. You can look at the Finca institution, and here I'll just scroll down. There's the three products they have. We happen to be looking at the highest price product, the biggest number of clients, and the highest price. But again, that's sort of average. These are they may look high, but they're average prices, or even below average prices for Tanzania. In addition, I just want to show you, this is a great new feature that we've been added just a few months ago. If you haven't been looking around, I encourage you to come here to our price analysis tool. So I won't spend much real time on this. Here's Tanzania. We're only looking at Finca right now. Let's add all of Tanzania. Okay, there's all that. So that's like on the country page, and it's now giving us some statistics. And we scroll down, and we get more statistics of the average, min, max, standard deviation for different groupings of loan amount. We break it down by institution type. We do another analysis here, which is very useful, but I won't go through it right now for lack of time. But come here and explore. Now watch this. You can add another country. So I just want to whet your appetite here. Let's see. Uganda's next door. So we'll pull up Uganda, and now we have prices of 2 countries, but they're kind of mushy. So let's go to custom, and let's change bubble color to country. So now there you can see orange is Uganda, and blue is Tanzania. We're showing U.S. dollar equivalents, but so let's say a dollar isn't worth the same versus the economy, the GNI. So let's change the x-axis to percentage of GNI, and the graph shifts a little bit. Now we've got everything's kind of mushed up over here. So let's click here. Let's zoom. Let's cap the x-axis to those loans under 500%, and there. Now we've zeroed in. If we want to get rid of these outliers up here. Let's cap the y-axis at, let's say, 150%. And now we can study things a lot more. And these statistics here on the left and the table down here below all update instantaneously. The website, our website designer is like a magician. As you type things in here, you saw how the graph updates. All those statistics also update on the fly. And we can also show, you click there and you can see every data on every single data point on that graph. And you click up here and you can download that data set that we just made. So then you can open that up in Excel and or statistical package and generate your own statistics. So we've got, now that we have this wealth of data, our website now also gives you some very impressive tools to go in and understand and learn from that data. When we do this, we can then, as I remember how I started the presentation, with that we can then move toward understanding more, defining what is a responsible price. So I'll move back to the PowerPoint from the website. Again, please do go and explore and send us questions and comments and wish list ideas. So we see the prices, kind of go up, right? This is I'll go through this real quickly. The reality of the cost curve. Oh, okay. Well, here this shows you how you can download from our website. You can click on all sorts of buttons and download any data on the website. So look for those buttons. So how does here's a real easy, simple, obvious way to explain to your colleagues, or to your family, to your children, why prices are higher on smaller loans, on microfinance loans. Let's say it costs $50 to manage a $500 loan. Well, your operating cost ratio is 10%, and then your price needs to be build that in, right? What if you want to give smaller loans, assuming we're going to assume poorer people, $250 loan? You want to give the same quality of service and pay your staff the same. So it still costs $50 of staff time, okay? And that means your operating cost ratio just doubled to 20%. That means your price has to increase by another 10%. What if you want to move down to $100 loans? You can see where this is going. What are you going to do? You're going to spend less time with those clients. You're going to tell your staff you can't pay the same competitive salaries because you're committed to working with the poor. So you get more efficient. You spend only $30 to work with that client. But the reality is that $30 to manage a $100 loan, your operating cost ratio continues to increase. And what do? You get a curve. This is where the operating cost curve comes in. The operating costs are variable, are correlated to loan size. And when you build in a little bit of profit on a 20% loan, your operating cost ratio of 20%, you end up with a price of 35. We see that, and nobody would be too upset. Well, we in the industry aren't too upset about that loan, but that's not what happens. We give a smaller loan, the operating costs go up, and to keep the same profit, we charge a higher price. So the $500 loan needs to have a higher price if we want the same profit. The messiness is that are the institutions that then give out a $1,000 loan and charge the price of the $500 loan, call them all the same, and there you're making a profit of 13%. So the same price does not mean the same profit. These institutions, the pricing in microfinance is really messy. It's all about where you are on the curve. And this makes it so much harder for us to understand and for the world to understand. So here's what we see. This is operating expense ratio data from the mix. I'm just going to show you a couple countries. There's how these 59 MFIs, the ones with smaller average loan balance, have higher operating expense ratio. And those are the safe ones. Those are deemed efficient by us experts. We analysts say they are efficient, and those guys over there are not. They are inefficient. It's all about loan size. It's a misinterpretation of efficiency. Okay. Now, what price do they charge in the Philippines? Well, this is portfolio yield taken from mixed data. So that's the operating cost ratio of these institutions in red, and the blue is the portfolio yield, and you can see a strong correlation, right? That's pretty persuasive. There's Bolivia. It's not just Philippines. There's Bolivia, and this gives us a new way to look at the data. Where are you on the curve for your operating costs? Where are you on the curve for your portfolio? Are you close to the curve? If not, why not? And what spread have you selected between your cost and your price? That's where profit comes from. Okay, so we do not have price competition. That's a fiction. Well, some of us actually believe it. Some of us just find it convenient to say. But we say prices are competitive. There's lots of MFIs, so prices are competitive. If I make profit, it's only because if I make more profit than the others, it must be because I'm a good manager and we are more efficient. Wrong. Look at the prices in Uganda. Does that look like price competition? A consumer could be paying 30% or 130%. On the same loans, the consumer doesn't know those prices. There is no price competition. The MFI can decide what they want to charge. That's the reality, okay? So we've gone from opaque pricing. We're now in a stage of understanding, having transparent pricing and understanding it. We're moving toward responsible, trying to figure out what is responsible pricing. We know what prices, we know more about why. As we move forward, what price should we charge? This is not easy. There's some subjectivity that comes into involved. We're not breaking laws in most cases, but does that mean that it's a responsible price just because it's not illegal? Should we be moving toward responsible pricing? How should we do that? Those are the discussions that we're engaged with right now. I believe responsible behavior is an obligation of our industry. We're working in imperfect markets. It's so obvious. The data I just showed you proves it. There's no price competition. The clients that we work with are very poor, trusting, unskilled in financial analysis. We hold the power, and with our power comes responsibility. We're not doing, this is not market-based theory of an exchange negotiated between equal parties. We rule. We hold all the power. Okay? The temptation of setting your price high, hiding your price, making large profits is leading some of us to irresponsible practice. That leads to one element of client abuse, and we're seeing lots of other elements of client abuse. And this is repeating the pattern of the last 3,000 years when microfinance was intentionally created to be an alternative path, but we're getting sucked back into the well-worn path of manipulating the poor with debt. I'm going to skip over this income distribution pyramid. When you look through the PowerPoint at another time, this is really useful stuff, but the bottom line is that we work with the poor, and the profit goes up to the top of the pyramid. How much profit should go to the top of the pyramid, and still, with us still proclaiming that we're working in socially responsible businesses? Should there be a limit to the profit? So here's a very simple and I think incontrovertible way to look at how pricing works. We look at our costs. We set a price. We decide how much profit we want to make, and we set the price. No, the market is not setting the price unless there's a usury cap in the country we're working in. We set our own prices, and we choose what we want to set, and it's not transparent, and consumers don't know, and the consumer competition is not driving down prices. And as a result, what price we set, we don't have an answer to the question, what price can the poor afford? These are critical questions for a movement toward responsible practice. So step one is to understand the cost curve and the choice of profit level, and I did a paper 2 years ago. It's on our website. I encourage you to look through that. It's really, it pulls together these key ideas and expands on them and gives hard data behind it. Step two is to analyze, what prices are we charging? So the cost curve is what we need to charge, the prices we charge, step two, and then where we as an industry need to move forward is step three. How much can afford, this is what we're charging. can the poor afford that? And the impact studies we've seen so far, as you're acutely aware, are not showing clear, persuasive, uniform, positive impact of microfinance. With the prices we're charging and the profits we're making, why would we think we would have dramatically positive impact? It's our obligation to investigate. So here's a few questions for you to think about. Okay, if your MFI is new and your costs are therefore high, your operating costs are high, is it fair to set a high price and hide that price from your clients? What do you think? You know, does the ends justify the means? Right? What do you think here? Is it fair to make profits from your bigger loans, your $2,000 loans, charge a higher price there so that you can subsidize your $200 loans, you know, to poorer people? Is that fair? A lot of us do it. In fact, I think even most of us have done that at some point. Is it fair? But now, check this one out. If the market is competitive for those $2,000 loans, is it fair to make high profits from the $200 loans to subsidize your bigger loans? So subsidy, you know, is any kind of subsidy okay? Is the middle class subsidizing the poor okay? Is the poor subsidizing the middle class okay? And guess what? We do this to some degree as well, right? Okay. Now, how much profit? What's the maximum profitability? We're going to use, these are ROA figures here, so smaller numbers. What kind of profitability do you think is fair on a bigger loan, a $5,000 loan? 2% or 5%, 10? If I were in a room with you, you know, we'd be raising hands. So what do you think? Where would you, is there a limit? I mean, if you don't think there's a limit, then you vote for E, right? What about for $200 loans? Would you say that the maximum profit is the same, or would you say that the profit should be maybe lower when that profit is coming directly out of poorer clients, right? These are questions we need to discuss. Now, reference to kind of the shock wave through the industry in April 2007, Comportamos IPO. So I'm going to just close by kind of pulling this back in to say, you know, what do we see? Back then, and you can find this data on presentations of mine. There were $6 million of original investment. It turned into $2 billion US after the IPO in one day, right? Well, in 7 years actually. It was a 300-to-1 return on investment. They made about a 20-to-1 return in the first 6 years, and then they made a 300-to-1 return on the next day with the IPO. Okay, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And it was a cash-out IPO, not an IPO to expand operations. They took out money. They took out about $600 million in cash, and it went around to a handful of institutions and individuals. Yeah, and then after the IPO, you know, Comportamos says that the best, literally, you know, you can find the quote or contact me if you need to see it. But they say that sort of the best outcome of their IPO. They said we wanted to do the IPO to draw attention, to increase supply, and supply has increased. There are now 3,000 new micro lenders operating in Mexico. Wow. Yeah, how many of those 3,000 give data to the mix? How many of those 3,000 have signed the SMART campaign? How many of those 3,000 go to the Microcredit Summit? How many of those 3,000 are charging over 100% APR? 2,950 of those 3,000 are charging over 100% You know, they came in. This is the business, the so-called business world. This is the money lender world coming into microfinance. Is that a good thing? If it is, success. If it's not, we need to address that. I went to Comportamos website this morning, and it pops up. You know, they're in 3 countries. I knew they're in 3 countries in there. So you see Mexico, they've expanded to Guatemala and Peru just this week, or was that last week? 9th. I guess that was last week. They are an article. They're expanding, and they're planning. They're eyeing expansion in Colombia and Salvador. So you've got this big, very profitable institution expand already in 3 countries, planning on 5 or more, most likely more. Go to the mixed market. I did this morning. pull it down, their profit, their latest data in the mix, the profit before taxes and year before last, $226 million. Divide that by number of work days, that's about $1 million in profit per day. Yeah, the price, nobody, nobody really knows their price, their exact price. They're not on our website. They've been invited to give data and hasn't worked out, but it's definitely over 100%, right? Here's a picture of one of their clients from their website. 99% of clients are women. So they're making $1 million a day in profit by charging women like her over 100% APR. If you look at the ROA figure to compare back to the quiz we just took, their ROA right now, well, in 2012 was 17%. Their ROE, 50%. For every dollar of investment, 50 cents of profit in 12 months. Yeah. Shockingly high numbers, and some say there's nothing illegal. Some say that's impressive, and they say that's the future of microfinance. And some of us, including myself, say, gee, I sure hope not. 7 years after that IPO, we've been talking about responsible practice. We, as an industry, are still falling very short of identifying who is acting responsibly and who is not. We have standards, and we have the Smart Campaign principles, and the Smart Campaign, I went to their website this morning. How many institutions are on the list that are certified as complying with the SMART principles? You can go to the website. It's right there. 19. Okay? There are some 10,000 MFIs in the world. 19 of them are now officially certified as compliant with the SMART principles. The industry has no blacklist. The industry has no formal judgment on the other 9,981. Copatamos is not on this list of the SMART Campaign for whatever reason, but they're not certified as responsible. So then somebody might ask, well, are they not responsible? The answer we have to give is we don't know. We don't have a blacklist. We only have a white list, and the white list has 19 names on it. That's after 7 years, right? That's pretty slow progress. I don't even think it should be called progress unless we pick that up real fast, right? So this is the situation. The prices we charge are hidden. The prices we charge are often really high. The profits of some of us are making are often high, often really high. I should say sometimes high and sometimes really high. Some of us are getting rich. The industry is taking a beating, and we cannot go to the industry, to the world, and say, here's the good ones, and here's the ones that don't meet our definition of responsible practice, because we do not have a blacklist. Okay, we need to move forward on that. I'm going to close with my two of my favorite quotes. Socrates, it's so cool, Socrates. An understanding of mathematics is necessary for sound grasp of ethics. How are we going to get to the bottom of a fair price or a responsible price without, really digging into the math? And that's what we're doing, and we're making good progress. This is a necessary step. We're ready to do it. Second quote from Abraham Heschel. This was in reference to the Vietnam War and multiple other sort of bad events through history. He's a historian, a theologian historian. Indifference to evil is worse than evil itself. In a free society, few are guilty, but all are responsible. This has been a motivation for a lot of us, this quote for many of us, to say, I didn't get rich, and I'm not doing that, but I'm still responsible to get engaged. And that's what the Southern New Hampshire school to me represents, is that it's going beyond just the boundaries of what I'm doing. Just I only have to be responsible for what I'm doing, but instead saying we're part of a community, we're part of a world, we're part of an industry. We need to be aware of what that community, that industry is doing, and we need to be responsible for it, and we need to be engaged. And that's what a decent-sized group of us is doing. That's what many of us are doing. but we got to turn up the we got to, we've got to get to what's the best way to say this? Instead of talk, we need to get action. We need to make those lists. We need to say who's actually doing work that we can stand behind, and who needs to make a few changes, whether it be CEO compensation or profit or price, whatever changes. If you tweak a few numbers, you can come back into the fold. That's where we are as an industry. If we don't do it, we lose. So I know I went a little or a lot over on time, a few minutes over it looks like. So I'll let Bill take over and see what questions you have. Okay, thank you for your attention. Yeah.
Great, Chuck. Thank you. Really appreciate that. We do have a few questions, both here in the classroom and also from some of the listeners or viewers online. Before we get to the questions, I want the class here in New Hampshire to show their appreciation for your presentation. Did you get that?
Was that code?
That's what savings groups do to say, we don't actually need microfinance transparency. Thank you anyways. So. The only organizations in the world that can say that, but there's 10 million of them, so that's good. So I think I'll start with the questions that came from the viewers, and then if you in the classroom have a question, just raise your hand, and then I'll actually let you ask it, and Chuck will probably be able to hear you. But the first question comes from Stephen Waters, and he asks, will regulation drive responsibility or simply confuse the issue?
I believe that regulation, done right, is actually necessary for responsible behavior. Broad-based responsible behavior. If it's an institutional decision, some are responsible, some aren't, the majority aren't, and then when other people get rich while you're acting responsible, then you end up with this sort of shift toward it. Good regulation can level the playing field, and not, it doesn't I'm not talking like we all, the industry likes to say regulation is bad because regulation is price caps, and price caps will harm the poor. Show me the data. Show me the proof. Yeah, I'm not pro price cap, but I'm definitely not. I don't hate all price caps. Show me the proof. I see some, because right now, the fact is, without price caps or without regulation, without transparent pricing regulation, without some intervention, we have pandemonium, and we have everything from over-indebtedness, which is a different topic, but very, very closely related, and regulators can get in there and improve it. There's instances, a handful of countries, Cambodia, regulated very, very, very early. They banned flat interest 12 years ago, right? If every country banned flat interest, that would make a big step in the forward direction, right? And that's a pretty darn simple law to pass. So MF Transparency and some other organizations are working with regulators. Here's part of the dilemma, and then I'll let you go to the next question. Part of the dilemma is that we would have to get regulators in 70 some countries to all pass good regulation, and then the dilemma is that even within all those 70 countries, different regulatory bodies have different areas of jurisdiction. So if you can have a regulator here, Peru has pretty good regulation, but it only applies to the regulated banks. It doesn't apply to the NGOs, doesn't apply to the co-ops. So you don't have uniform regulation in Peru. You've got spotty regulation. So this is not an easy solution to just hand it over to regulators and get them to pass the right laws. It makes our job harder. Self-regulation, I'm convinced self-regulation ain't working. Self-regulation is not the answer, but that doesn't mean that we can just easily shift over to formal regulation, unfortunately.
So we have a question here from James Na. He's one of our master's students, and he is from Liberia. James, speak really loudly so that Chuck can hear you.
Well, good morning. My question is, thank you very much anyway for the presentation. It is very nice. It is an eye-opening. But the responsible pricing, I do not know you do not create an incentive in that. You do not talk about product diversification in such a way that it is about if they are charging higher price for the loan, how do you look at it for them to be able to diversify, bringing other products in their services that can be able to take care of the poor? And also, apart from that, a follow-up to that is that the prices that you are talking about, who are those microfinance institutions are targeting? Are they really reaching the poor? That would be the question that should be also answered within talking about the microfinance institutions are charging higher prices. Because the comparison I'm making is that the $2,000 and then the $200 in your presentation. So if you are giving $2,000 to a client, is that $2,000 going to the village the villager who is poor? Is that $2,000 reaching that person? That's what I want to find out.
Did you get that, Chuck?
No, I don't think anyone on the webinar would have. I mean, we heard some words, but missed the content.
Okay. So what I'm going to have to ask you to do, I'm going to actually go on to one of the questions from participants, but if you want to ask a question, come right over here where the microphone is. So
Yeah.
Sorry. Think about your question and make it a little more concise, and then as soon as I answer one of these questions, you can come up here. Sorry about that. This is an untested technology here. So I'm going to ask a question from Harmonia Pirantosi. Are you planning to collect information directly from clients to start replying to these questions on responsible pricing?
No, we haven't gone straight to clients. We've collected, at this point, our information. We go straight to lenders, MFIs, and invite them to be transparent. Some decline, and you'll find them, some of them listed on our website as not participating. The majority, in most countries, the majority do give us data. We don't go to clients. Was not to go to clients. That would be more pure consumer protection, to work with the clients to fight the lenders. Our approach for 6 years has been to invite the lenders to be voluntarily transparent. Okay. Now, there's another challenge. If you were to go just to clients, getting accurate information. Like let's say you interviewed a client outside the door. Well, what did they say the interest rate was? Well, 2%. Well, was that a month, or was that every 4 weeks? Was that flat? Was that declining balance? The client would say, I don't know. Was there a fee? Oh, yeah, there's something, a fee, but they said it's small. I don't remember. It would be harder to get complete and accurate information from interviewing a client. What some have done, MFT has not really ever done this, is the secret shopper, where you send in a skilled field agent to go in and pretend to be a client and ask the full list of questions and understand the answers. We haven't done that in the past. We've it doesn't mean we are against it at all, and it doesn't mean we might not do it in the future, but we haven't needed to do it yet, because almost all, the vast majority of MFIs have given us data. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Julie Abrams asked the question, are you assuming clients getting a larger loan in your examples, $2,000 loan versus a $200 loan, are economically better off clients, i.e. in a different economic segment?
No, I restrain myself from doing a hard link between loan size and client poverty or need. Right? The industry has used that as a surrogate, and I think in many cases we're off. Right? what I do, I mean, I see, I don't know what percentage of this is, but, I see, look at clients that go, Philippines is a common example, India is, Mexico is, of over-indebtedness. The client goes into one MFI, say, asks for 500, and the MFI says, no, we'll give you 2. So they get 2, and then they go across the street, and they get another 200 from the MFI across the street. Does the client need 400? I don't know. Okay, we don't know, but the client now has 400. Think of where you are on that steep part of that price curve. One $400 loan would have been cheaper to give to the client. It would have been cheaper operating costs, and the MFI could have lowered the price, so the client is paying 2 very expensive loans when they could have had one much cheaper loan when you're on the steep part of the curve. So, again, I don't have access to client poverty data to correlate with exact loan sizes. We're using, we're just looking at loan amounts, and we're looking at mixed data, and I do think that in particular countries, MFIs are not giving and correlated to the, necessarily to the need of the person, but again, more to the preference of the MFI, that we like small loans, okay? That's a Philippines thing. We like small loans, so we only give you small loans, even though you might be able to use a somewhat larger loan. Yeah? Okay.
Okay. And we have a comment from Bob Sutton, super awesome, from Costa Rica. So that's just his comment. Matthew Nisley is asking the question. Before I answer Matthew's question, I just want to let you know to the viewers that we are going over the 1 hour. We have about 3 or 4 more questions left. So I'm going to just keep going and have Chuck answer these questions. So if you need to step off, be reminded that this is all being recorded, and so you can visit this webinar anytime you want to. It'll be up in a few days on our website. So I just want to let you know that. But if you want to hang in, those of you that ask questions, I will ask your questions. Matthew Nisley is asked, can you give a brief overview of how the industry uses EIR versus APR? I thought that APR was mostly an American thing and that the rest of the world uses EIR. But you said that APR is becoming the industry standard in microfinance.
Right. Okay. A short answer: I wish. You'll find this is a really interesting and important question, but it's not super easy to. We've got lots of interesting. Email me, and I can send you if you can't find it on the website. But here's the difference. Those APR and EIR are really they're sort of in the industry in microfinance. They're sort of using the definitions that MF Transparency is assigned to them. Though you will find some countries that call it an APR in their country, and by MFT's definition, it's really an EIR. What is the difference? Here's the bottom line of this. And let's say you've got a monthly interest rate, okay? And both processes, all regulators, annualize the monthly figure. So let's say it's a monthly figure of 1%, and APR by MFT's definition, you just multiply by 12. There's 12 months a year. 1% a month is 12% APR. In Europe has a effective interest rate. They compound. So they take the 1% monthly and they compound it to the 12th power, and they get a 12.7% EIR. Now, nobody gets too upset about 12 versus 12.7, right? On sort of conventional commercial loans, the difference is small. But with compounding, there's scary exponential growth. Take a 3% monthly charge, okay? In the APR would be 3 times 12, 36. And EIR would be 42. So a 42% EIR, it's exactly the same loan. And get this, Bolivia uses an APR, and that 3% a month in Bolivia, they would say 36. And the regulators in Peru using a compound, the exact same loan product in Peru would be advertised as a 42. Now the difference is getting noticeable, okay? Maybe we can still live with that, but look at the prices on our website. I just showed you prices that are 10% a month. 10 times 12 is 120. 10% compounded is 200 and something. So an EIR, if we showed EIRs on the MFT website, we would be showing those prices at even twice what they are right now. Instead of 100, 120%, it'd be 230 or something like that. And they already look shockingly high. So you would just, we don't choose, MFT and the industry hasn't chosen APR because it's a lower, safer number, but it's a more intelligible number. There's no denying that everyone gets confused when you say 10% a month is 230% a year. What? Excuse me? 10% a month is 120% a year? Yeah, that I get. It's exactly the same loan product, exactly the same numbers, but it's a different approach to annualizing the figure, okay? So you'll find a lot more, and you'll find other examples about that and consequences on our website. We use APR because it's more intelligible, and second factor, interesting, the APR is closer to the portfolio yield, right? The EIR doesn't have any correlation at all to the portfolio yield of the institution, but an APR tends to be closer. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for your interest in that.
And Chuck, what is EIR for people who don't know?
Yeah, it's called the effective interest rate. So we have the annual percentage rate. Again, these are things that I would, if I could back up 6 years, I would change the terms, but that's where MFT started, because we said, in the United States they call it APR and they use nominal, and in Europe they call it EIR and they use compound. So that became our shorthand, but it's not obvious. Okay, again, you won't find any financial definition. You won't be able to look up APR in any financial textbook and get a real definition. And each country that regulates, again, there's sort of interchangeable terms. So what MFT does now is we call it the APR nominal and the EIR compound. Okay? That's really what we need. We need to say, what's the annualized rate using nominal annualization, shorthand for MFT APR? What's the compound rate with compound annualization, shorthand EIR? So it's not easy, but again, there's no international standards on that vocabulary.
Okay.
Even outside of microfinance. Yeah.
Thanks. So I have in the queue questions from Alejandra, from Sandra, from Dilip, from Juliet, from Clement and Anna, but we have James Na standing here in the flesh. So James, go ahead. Daniel. What did I call you? Daniel Na from Liberia.
Yeah, Chuck, I'm coming back again. I think by now you can hear me. Is your approach, do a follow-up on those clients who actually benefit from the loan provided by the MFI, in particularly the poor?
I don't think I understand.
If the client benefits from the loan?
Yes.
And then what was the last part?
Yes.
Right.
From the microfinance institutions.
Well, okay. First of all, I think we have not solved a way to answer if the client is better off. Okay. How do we know the client's better off? The industry made a position almost 20 years ago to say, if the client borrows the money, pays it back, and asks for another one, they're smart. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Maybe so, but there's no proof of that. And when we get in and look for proof, we don't find the proof. When we do large, long-term studies, some clients are better off, some clients are much worse off, and that's the reality. So then to boil all that down, 10,000 clients, are they better off? Well, some are, some aren't. Why? We cannot answer. We're not able to answer that question. Now here's my simplistic, but I think it's accurate way to say it, is that clients are better off if they borrow money. They need money, and the more money that comes out of their pocket and into our pocket, the less that stays in their pocket. So the higher the price is, the more profit we make, the less pennies stay in her pocket, the less positive impact. If we make a little bit of profit, there's a better chance that we made profit and they're better off. The more profit we make, the more likelihood, it's direct correlation, the more profit we make, the less positive impact on that client. It's mathematical fact. Money doesn't grow on trees. Our profit came out of her pocket. And if we lower our price and lower our profits, there's more pennies staying in her pocket, and there's more chance of positive impact, period. I mean, how can you argue with it?
So we have a couple of questions, both related to comportamos. First one is from Alejandra del Castillo. I'm going to ask both questions now. You can answer them together. So this is from Alejandra del Castillo. Hello, I would like to know, why is Chuck focusing on comportamos and its expansion in Mexico and doesn't, why is he focusing on comportamos and its expansion in Mexico does not appear in the list of countries in the website? The other question is from Ana Castillo. In the comportamos example, you said the IPO was a cash out. Where is the proof of this?
Okay, we go. We haven't gone in every country in the world. Obviously, you see that from the map. We haven't gone into Mexico. Partly, nobody in Mexico has invited us. Okay, and if we're doing it voluntarily, if we're going in and inviting MFIs to give us the pricing data, we're not so sure that the Mexican MFIs would be very cooperative. Okay, so it's sort of our dream that one day we go there, and then we actually know what the prices are, because honestly, nobody knows what the prices are. The second question was just remind me of the second question.
Yeah, sure. In the comportamos example, you said the IPO was a cash out.
Yeah, the IPO.
Where is the proof of this?
Oh yeah, I mean that's okay. The proof. I mean, you can find that. Okay, okay. The proof is everywhere. I mean, it was a secret. It wasn't a secret cash out IPO. The Credit Suisse. I'm not sure if the Credit Suisse did the pre-IPO document. It's 270 pages long. They sold 30% of the existing shares. They issued no new shares. They had 30%, and the Credit Suisse document shows exactly how many shares of each of the different parties. The parties were Acción, IFC, Comportamos NGO, and 17 of the Comportamos board and staff members, all Mexican males. Okay, 17 of them. And the exact number of shares that they owned, that they liquidated, is in that document. That document used to be on the Comportamos website a few years ago. I don't know if it's still there, but it's this is in any document, any sort of academic or any kind of paper written up about the Comportamos IPO. They all say 100% say it was a 30% cash out IPO, and the logic. Acción wrote a paper right after the IPO and explains why it was a cash out IPO, and they say they only sold 30% because they wanted to maintain control with 70% so that Comportamos would maintain true to its goals, et cetera, et cetera. Again, the proof's everywhere. If you can't find it, and nobody denies it, if you can't find it, just send me an email and I'll get it to you.
Okay. We have a couple more questions. I'll try to squeeze them in here. We have Juliet Almeida, who's asking, thank you for the excellent presentation. It is a real eye-opener. I strongly believe that microfinance could alleviate poverty. What can be done to make clients more aware about the amounts they are paying? What about donations done through online sites like Kiva?
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing, MFIs, there's certain, once a country obligates the truth in lending, clients are more aware. India has moved that way now. Clients, and look at the data on our website. The India prices are affordable now. And they're transparent, and the MFIs are still making profits. Okay, so that's sort of like, I wish we could get every country to that level. Getting it once a country obligates it, then that helps. But it still doesn't give perfect protection to clients. There are some institutions, we have some nice case studies of them, that voluntarily, that choose to be transparent even though no one else in their country really is, and they educate their clients. Well, here, I'll give you just one other recent example. I guess I mentioned Finca has been switching from all the Fincas all used to charge flat. Now, many of them, or most of them, maybe eventually all of them, are moving to declining balance interest rate. That's a more transparent price. And is it going to cost them clients? Or are the clients going to walk away because the price sounds higher? Well, this will be a good experiment, right? To move toward regulation and voluntary institution by institution transparency with a little bit of consumer education. I don't think we need to get into big, complicated financial literacy trainings to do this. We can get people more aware of the prices they're charging. These are steps in the right direction. Again, I'm just real concerned that the steps are small and only in certain countries and too slow. Meanwhile, things get uglier. And more countries go through the typical cycle of credit looking cheap, and it's not, and clients getting into over-indebtedness, and then the bubble bursts. So how we as an industry can get our act together to avert disaster instead of just respond to disasters. We're pretty good at responding to disasters, but there are more and more of those coming all the time. So I'm sorry for the long rambling answer to that. Was very good. Again, there's no one simple, easy answer. Yeah.
All right. Well, Chuck, I really want to thank you for taking the extra time, and I want to thank folks that asked really good questions. This is I was remarking to our class here in New Hampshire that I got involved in this field in the early 1990s, and this was a debate that was kind of beginning to simmer back then, and it boiled over in 2008, and this doesn't seem to be subsiding. I really want to applaud the efforts of Microfinance Transparency to try to bring transparency to a field that sometimes is extremely murky and causes people who are really into looking at development and alleviating poverty and really challenging some of the inequities out there to wonder if this is all in the right direction, or should we be looking in some other way. And I think it's, as I was mentioning to the class, this old American saying that sunshine is the greatest disinfectant, and I think Microfinance Transparency is one of the great rays of sunshine out there in a fairly dark and cavernous field sometimes. So I want to thank you again, Chuck. The class wants to thank you one more time. And for everybody who is listening, I just want to remind you that we will have another joint webinar between Carsey Institute, Oxfam, and the SEEP Network on Friday, June 27th, partnering with government savings groups in Colombia at 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern Standard Time in English, and from 12:30 to 1:30 in Spanish. And if you're on this webinar today, you probably got a notice about that, or you can find out about it on the SEEP Network site. Again, my great thanks to Chuck. Thanks to everybody who has been attentive and hanging out for the entire hour and 20 minutes, and hope you will join us for future webinars. Everybody have a great day, and we will hopefully see you here again soon. Goodbye.